Good evening, and thanks for inviting me to speak to you this evening. Sorry I can't be live. The time difference between Germany and the US of A is a little bit wide. I'm Patrick Cox, served in the fire services in South Africa and in Britain for nearly 36 years. The last 10 of those were at the Fire Services College, where I was a lecturer and teacher. Senior tutor was the title, teaching on a range of courses, among them leadership and investigations. I'm the author of a sci-fi series, the Heron series, and one of the prequel books to, if you can call it that, one of the spin-offs that has come from writing that series is Captain James Heron, First into the Fray. Captain Heron plays a part in the Harry Heron series, and it seemed logical to give him his own book at the end of the series, because he actually turned out to play a much bigger role than I initially envisaged. That said, the book is set in 2202, I beg your pardon. The captain has been recently widowed and is now doing what the Navy calls a standby during build. In other words, he's in command of a ship that is not yet finished building, but is now responsible for seeing that all the key staff are appointed, readied up, trained up, and get to know exactly what they're doing with the new ship. These standbys are incredibly complex, and of course, the more complex the ship, the more complicated the whole scene becomes. But I think, first of all, let me say that I envisage starships and interstellar travel, or vessels or ships capable of traveling interstellar, very much in the same way that I see submarines, especially these big nuclear submarines that we have trotting around the oceans these days. You would need more or less the same kind of mindset. You would need similar command training. You would need similar divisions within the hierarchy of the ship to make it function. And you would need a heck of a lot of expertise. And like a big nuclear submarine, if anything goes wrong, you have to have the capacity to fix it. There's no simple bail out and swim for it. Right, having said all of that, how do I develop the characters? Well, my characters tend to be people that I've either encountered, worked under, or worked with, who have made a particular impression, or brought specific characteristics to the job. I don't use real people as characters. They're based on people that I've, as I've said, know or encountered. And one tends to try and play up the strengths and the weaknesses to get a balanced character. They've got to have a backstory. So for each of my major characters, I like to write out a simple biography. When were they born? Where were they born? What was their upbringing? What was their background? And develop it from there. The balance of action and and so on. It's all too often you can get bogged down. There can be, some people say there's never too much action. I would tend to disagree. Too much action can actually be very wearying for the reader. So you really want to have the quieter moments where the reader recovers and contemplates on what the big action was all about. And you need to have those gaps in between the big actions in order to build the people and the people aspects. It's no good sort of having an all-action hero who's constantly thumping or banging or shooting. You need to show him in the moments, and her, in the moments of contemplation where they're considering what has happened, what they're facing, what they're going to do about it. You've got to hold a mirror more or less to real life. And in this particular book, I've had the good fortune to have worked alongside chaps who have actually served in nuclear submarines, and could sort of spell out the trials, the tribulations, the decisions you've got to make. You know, when can I stick a bit of chewing gum on this to hold it all together? Or when do we actually need to hit the panic button and get the experts in to fix it? So rounding out the characters is quite a challenge in some ways. What would I hope that a reader would get out of all of this? I would hope that a reader would actually be encouraged to think about the whole question of leadership and management. I've always argued that management is a function of leadership, and it's a function of just about every job going. I mean, even the cleaner has some management responsibilities in his daily task. And it just gets more and more complicated as you go up the tree. Among my heroes, as an inspiration throughout my career, have been people like Admiral Lord Nelson. Now, as a person, he probably wouldn't have been a very comfortable person to be around. He tended to have some very strict views. But as a leader, he was always clear, concise, and one of his tricks was his breakfast every morning. He invited all the midshipmen to breakfast with him. Now, ostensibly, this was because he couldn't cut up his own meat, so he got them to cut it up for him. But the reality was that he actually used these moments to talk to them, to encourage them, and to get them to think about the whole process of managing a ship's company, managing a ship, managing a fleet. And that was his genius, was that he was an excellent manager. But he was also a prime seaman, a fantastic strategist, and tactician. And that's a very rare combination. Another is Admiral Somerville, World War II admiral we hear very little about. But he was one of the quiet backwoods boys who kept a fleet in being, kept the Japanese guessing, because they didn't know where he was going to pop up next. And when he had the resources to do it, he used them very effectively. And this again is a trait in leadership, husbanding resources, husbanding the crew, and making sure that your people are looked after. Anyway, that's what inspired the book, and that's what I hope people will take away from reading Captain James Heron, First into the Fray. The subtitle, by the way, or the other half of the title, is actually the motto of the nuclear submarine HMS Vanguard. It's been the motto of every HMS Vanguard. The current submarine is, I think, the 10th to bear the name and the motto, First into the Fray, Vanguard. And thanks for listening. I hope you have a very pleasant evening and a very pleasant discussion on the rest of the show. Thank you. Take care now.